Hi, Jacqueline Foster here of Feeling Good TV, the place to come visit when you're really yearning to make an impact without sacrificing your desires for passion and pleasure. Have you ever treated yourself in a way that after you thought, ugh, why did I do that again? What am I doing? Maybe you ate that thing you really wish you didn't want to eat. You drank more than you wish you did. You isolated yourself when you really needed support. Maybe you turned down a job offer or something in your life that you knew was really important to you. I want to talk today about what happens before you make that choice and give you a question, a way that you can begin to talk to yourself and see if that begins to bring awareness of the way that you do treat yourself and the way that you do honor yourself. And encourage you to make this a part of your daily practice, at least around those things that you know tend to be a struggle for you, whether it be around food or whether it be around making career choices, anything you can apply this to. And we all have some level of where our weakness is, so this would be a great place to apply that to. Okay, so imagine that you're faced with a decision. We'll use something really simple like food choices. Imagine that you're faced between a decision of cake or an apple. And your tendency is to normally go for the cake, and then afterwards you're really frustrated with yourself because you are trying to lose weight, you don't feel good after you eat it, and it brings up a whole host of feelings that you know that you don't want to have. Well, when you're faced with that choice, what you can begin to do is, we always have an inner dialogue. There's always a conversation that happens in our head. So instead of the conversation going on inside of us, just being between us and ourselves, a really interesting thing to do is imagine that that conversation is going on between you and your sister or someone that you love in your life. It could be a spouse, it could be a sibling, it could be a best friend. But imagine the conversation about whether or not to choose, for example, this cake versus this apple is going on between you and that loved one. What would they suggest that you do in that moment? Or what would you suggest that they do in this moment? What I imagine is if it's for a loved one, they'd probably be thinking, what's going to help you feel the healthiest? What's going to help you feel the strongest? What's going to leave you really feeling good about yourself? I imagine the decision is going to be very different when you take a moment to reflect from the perspective of a loved one, either what the loved one would tell you or what you would tell that loved one. I really think that the outcome would be quite the same. And this is a really, really interesting question to begin to ask yourself when you're faced with these decisions. What would I say to my loved one about this? Or what would my loved one suggest for me? Whichever one resonates with you most. And when you ask that question to yourself, one, see what choice you want to make from that and why you might be making that choice. And two, use this as an example to see if the standards that you have for yourself are different than the standards you have for those that you love. This is not an example to bring more feelings of guilt for not having the same level of standard for yourself, but it is a perfect way to begin to recognize if you are holding yourself to the standard, if you are honoring yourself as much as you honor those in your life. It is so vital that we, and I'm speaking to myself as well, that we hold ourselves to the same standard, that we have the same amount of faith, belief, love for ourselves that we do for those around us. So by beginning to play with these exercise of what would I suggest that my sister do? Or what would my sister suggest that I do in this moment? You can begin to really notice if you're making those decisions for yourself on a regular basis that you believe and that you hold the standard of for those that you love. So I highly encourage that if this exercise resonates for you, you take this exercise to those areas in your life where you're struggling, and you see if you would be making those same decisions. And if not, what can you begin to shift that? Maybe it's asking this question beforehand and just to begin to see, how would I act differently if I was coming from a space of love from a loved one? Would I make that different choice? And certainly don't end there. The goal here, right, is that you know you're making a decision, because that's honoring your body, your being, and because it's honoring that, you want to make that choice for yourself. I think that's the ultimate goal. But this is a perfect place to start to begin to create a perspective shift and symbolically look at the way that you are making choices for yourself, and see if you would still make those choices if you were coming from the perspective of a loved one. So I'd love to hear your experience with this, and I'm always curious about ways that you work with self-sabotage, you work with those sensations that arise, and what helps you move forward from them. As always, it's wonderful sharing with you. And if you enjoyed this video, you can come over to JacquelineLaceyFoster.com for more videos. And you can also find me on hertube.tv. Wishing you an amazing day and looking forward to share with you more next week. Thanks so much.